our last budget session at this time. Deputy Clerk Chris, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Noah,
Here.
Palmer,
Here.
Councilman Ashby,
Here.
and Robinette,
Here.
Here.
Lipka.
Here.
Nelson.
A quorum is present. At this time, we turn the meeting over to City Manager, Interim City Manager, John Hampton.
Mayor, Council, again, it's always a pleasure being in front of everyone here. Tonight, like Mayor said, will be hopefully our last one. And we will start off with Evan.
We did reserve time for any last questions or any other discussion. Council wanted to move forward. Before we get to that, though, there's a couple things we did. And not necessarily had to put it in the budget book. The very last, second to last tab, behind this lateral. That's the depth of the, we did add the farmer's market expenses for this upcoming budget year. $30,000 budget for this. This was already in the budget figures already, so it was the addition of the budget was very much not added. There's not an income sheet because we don't know what the income is going to be yet. With farmers market, we haven't dedicated that. Which year we do have it dedicated and looking forward to revenue number forward in this upcoming subsequent fiscal year. The other thing we would like to go over tonight, we have a presentation to go over with you as per your request, is the ARPA funds. And what we have, I'm sorry.
Yeah, before we get to all that, following the agenda, we have publication first, which I believe we have a representative in with us today. Okay.
So we have, Bob and Garland is here for this district on the publication first. I'll turn it over to Bob.
The very last section. 5 pages here.
I also have with me Gary Nahu. He's our they're here in newspaper. So and sorry that we're coming in kind of at the last minute, but this form of communication and making things clear, but we're here to just request council to continue the funding for the there are 2 pages of news that we print every month in the Ferguson neighborhood news, and plus some additional material that's added. Gary knows a lot more about the content that goes into the paper. And I'm gonna just have him have a few words about that.
Yeah. Every month, but usually it spills over, and we do probably almost 3 pages. Because it's on the page. You have your normal 2 pages that you divide. You use 2 pages. And then, in addition to that, we do almost another over a half page. This, and then if anything else comes in, like this coming month, the police chief, I didn't have room on this page, because I put it on the front page. I don't know what else to do. Get too much stuff in, and I get it from the Octavia. She sent me all the stuff. This month I didn't get anything Parks and Rec. Last month I got something, but it was an empty email. So I didn't get it. I didn't have anything to put in farmers market. I was wondering why I didn't have anything until I got email from Dave Musgrave. Hey, what's going on? I responded and told him, hey, I didn't get anything. The email I got was empty. When he sent it to me, it was there, but the one I got from Octavia, I couldn't do anything with it. But this month, we still put something in about farmers market. Because to me, it's a very viable thing. We need to have farmers market. The wildlife run, all that, we throw it in. Not for free, but it takes up a substantial amount of room. Yes, we need to continue funding. We do the best we can.
So I want to, I guess, just express a couple of things that I've noticed since we've had to switch things up starting in March, and we were wondering if that was going to be the last edition. And one of the biggest things that helped us along was the aspects of finding this new printer that brought our costs back in line to what we were at before. The current printer had raised the prices, and then there was the postal rate problems and all that. So we were able to overcome all that and work through that and lower some costs to keep the paper going. And the aspects of when we were getting feedback from the residents and the people reading the paper, there was a tremendous amount of great response that we got back from our readers. And the thing that I also noticed too is that more and more of the copies, the extra copies that we're printing are all being taken up and are being used up. So actually we're adding 250 more additional copies in June to put out into different locations. We added a couple other locations too to distribute more copies. And I even have people that come in, they're in my lobby waiting and they pick up the paper and they're outside the community and they're always reading about what's going on in Ferguson, and they're able to see that in the print. So there's been a lot of good value that still continues having the paper in our community. And I'll take any questions or comments, or Gary will too, for the council.
Councilwoman Robinette.
So I guess the biggest question I have is, why does it fall to the city to fund a paper that could be funded by people? Like, it could be subscription based, right? If you're going to deliver it to my mailbox, then I would expect to pay for that. Almost nothing but junk mail comes free to your mailbox. So I guess I ask this every year during budget, like why is a printed magazine? I understand that some people don't have access to the internet, but why not offset your costs by people who can and would pay for a subscription to cover the majority of the costs, and then you can print up extra ones at the grocery or the library or whatever. Why does it fall to the city?
I don't think it all falls to the city. I guess part of to do a subscription base, it would require a lot of some more people helping, and maybe even a paid person to set that all up, monitor it, collect funds, do billing. It would be a pretty monumental task in that regards to turn it into something like the Post-Dispatch, where you would have hundreds of subscriptions that you would have to take care of, or even thousands maybe, which would be, we're just a small volunteer organization. And if the city cut the paper, we would print, and we would just basically print and put it out. Probably wouldn't do the mailing. I mean, it's almost 9,000 copies that are being mailed. So we would continue to print. If we ended up with a substantial amount of more new advertisers, we could get back to doing some, some mailings in that regard. So, the city provides, I don't know the percentage wise of the cost to help offset, because the cost to mail it is around $1,600 or $1,700 a month. So the city's paying $2,200, and so 1,700 of it is going towards postage, so that every one of the residents is getting a copy in their at their address.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Lipka.
So the city pays $2,200 a month for the 2-page advertisement, correct?
Correct. and
Okay. And then that's a rate that has been negotiated for the city. So what's the rate for something like that for anybody else? I know. Okay. How many column inches are in a full page? Okay, so a bit higher.
4.
And then one of the things that I heard from this I never say it right, Dice's, was that a lot of things, what was it? We submit a lot of stuff that they don't even print. Can you kind of address that situation? Like that's one of the things I heard. So, my thought is, can you kind of explain, I know you guys get more than 2 pages worth from the city. So that's why some things may not get printed, correct?
There was like 4 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Now, farmers market.
Mm-hmm.
They had all the resolutions, and I put those in this month, pages that make sure those get printed. Everything is in. If they would have had Parks and Rec, I wouldn't have even, no room for that to be wrong. But I don't know what I missed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
really.
So
I
like,
put everything in.
are you, outside of the 2 pages, are you charging the city for those extra things? So what value would you put on those extra spaces that you are doing? If you had to put a monthly value, what are we getting for free?
I'm going to get that over half page.
Okay. So basically what I would like to just clarify is that we are not subsidizing the newspaper as a city. We are paying for advertising in a publication that all of our citizens see. We have we've talked about many times at this council to get the word out, be transparent, let people know, make sure everybody's aware of all the good things happening. We have new department heads that have plenty of things that they would like to put in the newspaper as well. We're utilizing other sources, that's great, but we have a very strong section of this community that gets their information from the Ferguson Times or from the newspaper. I'm sorry, I called it the wrong thing. But that is something we need to keep in mind. Not only are we paying for a service, we're not subsidizing, we're paying for a service, but we're also getting a lot of service at no cost out of the kindness and cooperation and partnership that this service has with our city. And we also have a very strong section of our community that depends on their information from this paper. So, that's what I would like this council to be quite clear on. So I think for what we receive and the cost we have, we're working with a partnership of volunteers that is very beneficial to everybody involved.
Councilwoman Robinette and Councilman Ashby.
Okay, so just to point out, it does become then a conversation about is the service we're getting worth the money that we're paying? And the service that what we're paying for is actually more than what council is paid total.
That's,
So just like in perspective, I mean, that's,
well, council has the ability to.
Councilwoman
I'm
Rob-
just saying.
Robinette has the floor.
So I'm just saying it's up to us to determine, are we getting the value of a printed paper in a day and age where, you know, things are moving to electronic form? The regular Post Dispatch doesn't, like they did away with the journal years ago. Free papers are not common anymore. So I just, you know, I want to throw that out there as well.
Councilman Ashby.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same vein. I think if you look at the reading rate of a free publication, it's just above, junk mail. And so I wonder if we're paying a lot of money to send this to people that don't actually read it. And, conversely, if we printed a smaller number of copies, but put them in more locations, then the people that wanted it could pick it up pretty quickly and pretty easily. And, we would be saving all the money all the way through. I mean, I think it's great that we have the newspaper. You guys have done a spectacular job of resuscitating it. But I wonder if the model has passed and we need to just kind of pull the Band-Aid off and move beyond that model. Maybe with some kind of transitional help, and maybe next year it makes sense to do something on a continued smaller basis. But, we're so strapped for money right now. We're trying to put every dollar we can to really improve policing and improve public safety. And, I can't help but think that's $20,000 or $30,000 we could put toward a public information officer for the police department. So I hate to say this, I'm having a hard time thinking $30,000 is a number, just to have it out there.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lipka.
So just to address the 2 points, and, the amount. So, currently, Councilwoman Robinette's comment that we pay more in advertising rates than we receive as a city council. Well, this city council has accepted this rate of pay for years and years and years, just like we've had the newspaper for years and years and years. And if you want more, if you think you deserve more, then make a resolution to raise our rates, because other cities do it all the time. So that to me is a non-entity. The reading rate just above junk mail, I would agree with you 100% if this was a brand new newspaper, but it is not. It is a functional, longstanding source of information, part of this community's fiber of what makes it Ferguson. So it is not just a free newspaper. It's not just a step above junk mail. This is a standard of living that has been part of Ferguson for many, many years. And we've lost many things in Ferguson that make Ferguson what it is. We've compromised on many, many things. We're compromising on this as well. We don't have the same paper we used to have, but we have a paper. And I think we need to keep in mind that that is something that is very valuable to this community. And we're a part of that as an advertiser. Pulling out of this as an advertiser, saying that Ferguson as a city's council and staff no longer wants to be part of that, doesn't bode well for who we are and what we mean to this community. And I would also say that if you're concerned about the amount, the dollar amount, then go to one page and don't expect anything free. I mean, I'm not picking on the mayor, but make the mayor's column one paragraph. The case is, we can find ways to compromise, we can find ways to coordinate, and we can maintain this partnership to help maintain something that is a standard of living in our community.
Anyone else?
And
Rebuttal.
Well, and I wonder if there's a tweener path and having you tell people, because, I agree with most of what you said. I just think the send it out free model is no longer really appropriate for this day and age. And I'd love to see the city continue to have something in there. I'd love to see it be, continue to be part of Ferguson. I just can't in my mind justify sending it to 9,000 homes. I mean, could we agree on $10,000 this year? And you actually ask people, because I understand there'd be kind of an upfront cost of moving to a subscription basis, but frankly, you charge people a 1-year fee and then you just put them on the list, and it's not entirely self-maintaining. But once you actually get it started, it's not that bad. And maybe you're right. Maybe 1,000 people do want it and it's a great deal. Maybe 100 people want it, but But that would be kind of an interim to at least see you through this year and let you start charting another path.
Anyone else? I would just like to say, Councilwoman Linda Lipka, if you want to raise the honorarium for the council member, it has to be done by charter, not by resolution. That's one thing. Number two, the column that I put in the paper, it doesn't take that much. It's less than 500 words. So
I just was using that as an example.
number three, it is if the council has a consensus about continuing or reducing, now is the time to speak up.
I'm speaking up with my hand up.
Councilwoman Lipka.
So, let me ask this. So if we went to a situation where we could agree to an advertising dollar amount purchased by the city that was a little bit less to kind of compromise, in the meanwhile, could you possibly look into what the other council members are suggesting, which is a subscription model, which is maybe just do it as a yearly purchase? And then the third part of that is you had made the comment that it would be a monumental task and would have a lot of things, strings to pull it all together. That I understand, but would it be even something, Evan, is there any way that you could give them some direction on how to set that up? I mean, in regards to some assistance?
Evan plate is full. And
I'm asking him a question. He can tell me his answer.
but when you started trying to direct staff, that becomes a problem.
Okay, I'm not directing staff. I asked a question. Is there any source of recommendations or anything like that that come to mind?
So, yeah, Evan's thing is on finance, and I'm not trying to get into anything here, but we got a lot on our plate here as it is.
Okay.
I'm taking the last question.
Yes, so I guess my question is, for clarity, we need to come to consensus. So how do you want to come to a consensus? Do you want that through a motion or do you want that through
We could do a motion.
You have a question from Mr. McGartland?
Well, I guess I just like to have a little bit of clarity here in regards to when I talked about mailing this, we felt, and I think like Dorothy did and others, is the aspects of publication got mailed to all the residents, so they've got the news, what's going on within the city aspects of it. So, in regards to if you want to give less information, and then our ability to get that into every home probably won't happen. And so we can, we can find ways to operate if we have to ask for some subscriptions, but I guess I think the overall look at this is does the council want to be able to have the news that's going on within the city to be distributed to all the residents via a paper? And maybe that's a way of wanting to, because I can easily look into what subscription-based, costs and as far as that goes, but we'd also, I think, see a lot of readership go down too.
Councilwoman Robinette.
So I would like to make a motion then to remove the $30,000 and then the city can pay for advertising as needed or any space as needed in the paper as on an ad hoc basis.
And what budget is that going to come out of?
Let her finish her motion, please.
That is the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'd like to discuss it just a little bit. I don't know if that comes before or after a second.
You need a second to get a question.
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions?
So my comment is that that takes a little bit of the surety away from them. And if we just picked a figure, we're gonna give you $800 a month and we're gonna give you X amount. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, we wouldn't know how much to give them each month because, you know, it would be on what we would give them. So you can't say we're gonna give them $800 a month.
Mhm.
Yeah, but from their standpoint, they lose a little bit of certainty. If they knew they were getting 800, some months we would give you more than our allotment, some months we'd give you less. But you know, the reality of printing something, right, is that sometimes you've got extra inches, sometimes you don't. And that would give you at least some kind of number you knew was coming in for printing costs and a little bit of surety. And then, you know, it would be kind of sloppy, but it might work out and it would give them a little bit of a transition.
The motion is on the floor. You have a motion in a second. Chris Crable, could you please call the roll?
Aye.
Councilman Palmer,
Aye.
Councilman Ashby,
And so this is for the.
The
no-
motion
no
that's on the
for
floor.
just the,
It means to remove it completely.
or it means to go to ad hoc. Would it be possible just to, I mean, chief,
That's-
if you,
I believe that's the motion, correct?
Mhm.
I guess I had one more question. I guess I should have asked that. Is it, you know, again, looking from their standpoint, is it possible for the city to do a little bit of an advertising budget and say, here's what we would anticipate paying you in these time periods, just so they can do some kind of planning?
I can't guarantee anything.
No guarantees, but is it something you'd work toward?
We can look into it each month.
I can vote yes then.
The paper's been trying to remain in the budget since I first got on council. It's been close to being cut nearly every year. So this isn't the first time it's come up. And I mean, it's like you said, it is a different time and
Yeah. Well, with the softening, I say yes. I'm a yes.
Have you got, Councilman Ashby vote down?
he just said yes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's aye.
Aye, sorry.
Councilman Robinette,
aye.
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Councilman Lipka,
Hell no.
Councilman Nelson,
The motion to remove the $30,000 from the budget ad hoc passes. Thank you. Chief, next on your agenda.
Uh, I'll turn it over to Evan at this time to talk about. Go ahead, Evan, you're up.
And, just a little clarification, that was out of, that was out of citywide budget. As stated earlier,
Just before you move forward, citywide budget and what's the number?
10-17 -02.
Okay, thank you.
The second to last tab of the budget book. There. First item is the special business district. Last one, next, lateral. After the sort of lateral, just continuing. She was added in here. It's not added against the budget numbers, it was already there. It's just it's added, but for the farmer's market expense this year, budget of $30,000. Revenue we do have in the past, we've had revenue lines for this, but we are, they have expanded a little bit on this. But we haven't budgeted what a revenue line is going to be this year, not those. I'll let Dave. Point blank, you guys all remember we've had this contract out in the last 3 years. We've seen revenue projected number of both these works with. Truthfully, the past couple of years, we've been close to the. We did want to throw arbitrary revenue budget. This year we are tracking for PLC, parts of Maxwell accurate. $30,000 past couple of years. We have to be right to the point, not be able to follow through forward, hopefully down the road. Thank you. Well, we're just going to be satisfied.
Any questions? Hear none? Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we do have a presentation. Everybody can monitor. We're going to go over, and I'm trying to type it here. As we discussed last time, this is, the ARPA, the payments we received in, what we spent and what our proposal is for ARPA spending this year and this upcoming year. So far, this first read, this is what we've brought in ARPA. In fiscal year 22, we brought in a little over $2 million, almost $2 million, $2.1 million. Same, it's up this current fiscal year in August, brought in the same amount. The total we collected is 4.1, almost $4.2 million in ARPA funds. During FY23, we did expend almost $41,000 in desktops over laptops, not for the entire city, but for certain key individuals, most of the department heads and some other individuals, positions within the city. This will allow them to be able to work remotely, if needed be, also during their travel for business in the city, they have that ability as well. FNIP, we have funded FNIP with $250,000, and also we're also going to be spending for bulletproof vests for fire and PD at $29,000. That's coming from ARPA as well. That remaining after that is a little over $3.8 million so far.
Let me touch on the bulletproof vest real quick. With recent school shootings and all, we went to get rifle round vests. So it's not your everyday wear, but we bought enough for the trucks and each personnel.
For fire and PD.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is our proposal, what we're supposed to do for FY24 for ARPA. We're proposing that we give $400,000 to FIP in addition, $250,000 we've already been given them. This is for based upon some of the proposals that Larry Robinette proposed last meeting, to help with programs that FIP is wanting to do. We're also proposing $200,000 demolition of homes throughout Ferguson. The band shell has needed some repairs. We've already started getting bids on these, and we estimate it's to be around $30,000 to replace, or to fix. I'm sorry, not replace, repair. The next page is the big one. Is that we're recommending $3 million to give street repairs throughout the entire city. This would help not only all the John and
On this, I'll have Corey come up as well. But you know, these are just some of the pictures of some of the roads we have. As you can see, we are in desperate need to, you know.
Infrastructure.
Yes, ma'am. And so, but a lot of these, as you can see, the far right picture, the whole street does not need to be repaired. So if we could go ahead and hit some of these major issues like this with slab replacement, we can really stretch that $3 million. And this is not touching any of the CBDG streets or STP streets. We will use some of it to touch the STP street up there, just to get it to where it's drivable. But we want to get that grant next year. So we will go up there and make repairs. Corey's going to develop a game plan of how to use this with you know, with Weiss and if we go out for another RFP for an engineer. So I'm going to have Corey expand a little bit more.
Councilwoman North, and then Councilman Ashby.
Will council be able to recommend streets? Or will this be, I said, will council have the ability to recommend streets in our ward or work with you on the streets that, or how would that process go? Or you'll just go like with the normal process, how you look at the grade and? Okay.
Yeah.
Council will have a say so. I mean, if you're going to work with Councilman Palmer. Okay. So will the streets be, the repaired, I'm sorry, will the repaired streets be even throughout the ward? So like if you repair 3 streets in ward, the same, okay.
Yeah. On that, I just want to say, we're going to try to make it as fair as we can. We can't promise $1 million here, $1 million here, $1 million here. We got to take the worst streets of the worst. We will make sure that every ward is touched equally. But it may, dollar wise, it may not be 1 million exactly.
That is true. Councilman Ashby.
So, obviously streets are a priority. Personally, I almost wonder if we had to hold, $1.5 million back and, FNIP has lots of things it's doing right now that touch on housing, that touch on, redevelopment, reversal of blight. And I feel like if we put all the money towards streets, we might lose some flexibility down the road. I'd be more open to maybe spending $1 million or $1.5 million on street, and because we don't have to spend all the money this year, correct? We could leave $1.5 million in reserve and then figure it out 6 months from now.
Well, we can continue with the program and then after that,
Okay.
we may see where some other money goes. Yeah.
It's
2020.
obligated
2024.
December 31st, 2024. You have to make your application. All monies must be spent by December 31st, 2026.
Let's continue with the slide and then.
We-
and then-
Councilwoman Lipka has a,
Actually, Councilwoman Nelson was ahead of me.
okay, Councilwoman Nelson.
Kind of think Corey already kind of answered my question. We're gonna go with the worst of the worst and some of the awards who will be in the CDBG. We can worry about that with that money. And then we're gonna hit the worst of the worst throughout all 3 wards. Ferguson wards.
Yes. Today. Okay, Councilwoman.
So I think kind of what I'd like to ask and once you're done with all of this, and it might help Councilwoman Noah as well. We're not going to have input, so to speak, on what streets, but could you refresh our memories, maybe send us an email of what the top ones are going to be and kind of tell us what ward they're in, because that'll let us know. And then I would also like to say, if you're doing that, could you also kind of give us the wish list for the CDBG money so that we can kind of see, okay, this is going to be CDBG in the future. This is going to be SDP in the future. This is what's current, and you already know what your top streets are. So, could you just send that to us and that way we can answer our own questions as to whether or not they're in our ward and that kind of thing.
No, that was the previous city manager asked each person to turn in the worst streets. Do we still have that listing of those streets?
I can get it. Yeah.
Okay,
Or he did have it.
okay. And then that will help Corey and Public Works to see what has been turned in already, and they have something to compare. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
any other questions for Corey? I mean, Mr. Gilbert. Corey. I'm kind of leaning toward what Blake said.
We We got one more page, Mayor.
Okay.
And on this may answer some more of the questions.
Okay,
So, go ahead. So remaining money is $231,576. One of the things is, we want to try to develop a tree program, but within that tree program, we have to hit city trees as well. So it's a priority for us to get city trees. Yes, we need to get neighborhood trees as well, but that's where we can get, try to do everything at one time, city trees and residents. We're also looking at speed humps, radar, speed signs. Those are the ones that are solar to tell you what speed you're going. I talked to Chief Doyle today on that.
$6,000.
Um,
Okay,
and then lighting and lighting upgrades. Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Nelson.
Sorry. Over in the strip mall, things, you know, in front of like the iVision place and the shoe carnival, those little tore up things that's in the street that's supposed to be, are those humps
Mhm.
considered humps?
No speed bumps. Or no, those are speed tables, I believe. Are they not? Are they little
They're
strips?
humps. Those are humps.
They're strips, but they've all broken up.
So speed hump is
They're
is
wider,
wide.
John. Yeah, it's a hump.
And then we're looking at lighting upgrades, which is gonna help all wards. We're looking at that currently with Ameren right now. But that will be an initial cost. And then we can also look at getting with businesses with the Ameren program as well. And seeing if we can do something with the businesses, because if we got the businesses to get in with us with lighting, even if it's their own parking lot, we can help them do some upgrades. We are then put more lights to the street, hopefully stopping some of the crime, trying to reinvest in that community where people can see everything that's going on.
Okay.
And then also our shooting range for the police department is, it's way, way outdated. We are one of the only ones that still has a shooting range. And we have to do post certification. So then this means we go out, we have to spend that money. I don't think it's gonna be a big investment to do that. But would be really worthwhile to
okay.
take a look at.
Councilwoman Noah.
So, the city will develop a tree trimming program. Does that mean FNIP will also, if the funds are allocated? Because last week, Mr. Robinette spoke about a tree program, the 50-50.
Yeah,
So
so-
will we have two tree programs?
So we will work with our tree program for the city. the
That'll
city
just be the
trees,
city
and
tree.
then
They'll work with the residents.
IP, try to get one bid,
Okay. And that'll be,
because we can't cut all of our trees,
right.
and if this is a one-time thing, I can't keep sustaining this.
Right.
So it has to be one time, boom, you're done. So, and that's how we're gonna work at it.
So there'll have to be a process to determine, like the trees on the easement, who owns them?
So Corey and myself have been looking at that. We had a long conversation today. We just can't post. What we're gonna do, I believe it comes down to rules. Chris, maybe.
And Corey can hop in as well. We had a conversation about this over the last couple of days. So it's like it's not one set rule for the trees. It's usually a certain amount of feet from the center of the street. If there's a sidewalk and there's a sidewalk in the street, if it's in between the sidewalk and the street, it might be our tree. It might not be. So the rules vary dramatically. We don't have a list of every single tree the city owns, but we do have a list of the rules that generally that we kind of go off of. So we were talking about publishing that list of exactly, like, maybe separating it from our ordinance, our specific rules, pulling it out and posting it on the webpage so people can understand, like, generally 15 feet from the center of the street or 20, whatever it is. I'm not an expert in that, but using those so people at least have an idea of what the rules are. And if they have questions, they can reach out to us. I mean, they're kind of reaching out to us anyways. So if we,
Be 15 feet from the first root that's popping up, or is it 15
No,
feet from the
it's
original?
always the center of the tree.
Lipka,
from the
it is
trunk,
not your turn to speak. Councilwoman Lipka.
So the screen that we're looking at right now, you know, we've got a general amount of 231,000. And we've got a list of items. Do we have a breakdown on the amounts for each item? I mean, like, are we gonna do a quantity purchase on the street humps? Are we? How many radar speed signs are we looking at? What, you know, where are the lighting upgrades gonna be? How many cameras are we buying? You know,
So these are all suggestions. And obviously, I don't know the exact number of speed humps I would buy or the exact number of radar speed signs that we would buy. You know, this is also a suggestion of what we would like to see. If you want to see something else, we can put it in there.
well, I'm just wondering, I mean, are we gonna end up spending a major chunk on one thing? Or are you trying to do it equally amongst all these items? I don't really have anything against any of these items. I would just like to know what the intention is on these dollars.
It's to try to get as most of that done as possible.
Yeah,
We
I'm sorry.
always try to get as most of that done as possible.
I think if I can,
Yeah.
like with the street humps, we know like if there's places we can find them cheaper, we don't know. Yeah, we're still doing some research to see if it's, you know, legal or safe to be on the streets. We have to make sure we're getting the appropriate street humps, but we know they're about like $1,000 a piece. Like the radar signs, they go $6,000 to $12,000 a piece, depending on what kind of technology you get in them. The lighting upgrades, we have general numbers from Ameren. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but like we're trying to switch out the old bulbs to the LED bulbs so we can control how bright that is. We can lighten them up in some areas, darken them in some neighborhoods that might want them darker. So we have rough numbers on almost everything up there. The cameras, you know, we're getting them for free right now through our through Ameren, but if we're putting them on private businesses, they might have a cost to them. We know that, was it like $5,000 a camera for the flat
Potentially.
cameras? But might be cheaper than that if we're working with Ameren. The shooting range, I don't know that one off the top of my head, but the tree trimming, I've been discussing going out to like some sort of a citywide bid before we knew what FNIP was doing, at least before I knew what FNIP was doing. We kind of discussed a citywide bid, how much it would cost. There's been some conversations that people think that we might be able to do it for maybe $100,000 to get some key trees, but we haven't hammered those details out 100%.
Okay, and then the same kind of question I have is for the FNIP funding at 400,000, which I think that's terrific. But originally, if we were going to do everything that the budget proposal was about, it was going to come out to 520,000. So is there something specific, or is it specifically broke down what the city wants to see that $400,000 accomplished throughout those proposed programs? We had the program to extend the residential exterior improvement program to 1,500. We had there was a thing to extend the low income addendum to REIP, proposed to revisit advertise and manage a 50/50 sidewalk program, proposed advertise and manage a forgivable business loan and facade easement
We did
program.
remove the 50/50 sidewalk program because we have $50,000 in our budget for sidewalks. And that's what we were going to touch on later. And that would give us $100,000 for sidewalks through the city
Mhm.
with the 50/50. And that's 50,000 in our capital. Or it isn't capital, correct? That is correct. And that's what I said. With the ARPA funding, we came up with $3 and on the airline, we lowered that to 6,000. And then we also do $50,000 into sidewalk repairs.
Okay,
This is 5,000 for section. 5,000. And further recommendation. So that's what we're proposing.
okay, because I mean, I don't know. Are we looking at it like we're going to put 400,000 in our budget for FNIP and let them decide what programs they're doing? Because that's.
So we
okay
have
too.
a liaison, Rachel, and she is going to look at all that. Rachel knows what the community needs as well. And I think she's really developing a real sense of what the community needs, and she will start working with FNIP.
Okay,
I trust Rachel 100% working through this.
Councilman Palmer, then Councilman Blake, and we move on.
I mean, if you want, we can put another 150,000 in there and we can just be done with it. I
I'm
mean,
fine with whatever you got. My opinion doesn't matter, obviously.
Councilman Palmer.
Does the repairs or upgrades to the shooting range offer opportunity for us to partner with other municipalities, maybe charge a fee for their post certification? Okay. And then I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the trees. From what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but every street has a right of way, which is between 40 to 80 feet, give or take, depending on what street it is. You know, Florissant Road's got a wide right of way. Lakeview's got a narrow right of way. But every street could be put in a spreadsheet, which I'm sure we have, and you could put the right of way, and then you divide the right of way by 2, measure from the center of the street over. If over half the tree is in that right of way, it's a city tree. If less than half, or the tree's not even in the right of way, it's a residence tree. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
And we will be publishing.
Yeah.
that,
Councilman Ashby.
Yeah, so, so a few things. So, I know Mr. Robinette's talked in passing about a land bank. He's talked about some of the advantages of getting the status and having the audits done. I would like to see more money flow through FNIP, but then flesh out some of the programs we talked about last week with the group bidding. And then, even the demolition of houses, I think one of the problems we have is we look at things in these isolated buckets when really it's kind of a flow. We don't want to just demolish a house. We want to demolish a house and have a plan, and maybe we don't have to demolish it. I mean, is it possible to agree that we want to give FNIP a bunch of money, but not necessarily vote on it this time, or just do a partial vote now and then another vote down the road?
So, can I answer?
Yeah, I'm looking at you.
Okay.
City manager.
So with the houses, we get call after call. I mean, we are here, we get hammered all the time. Voicemails, angry residents. Why isn't this house down? Why is this not on the list? That speaks volumes. If you want to run it through FNIP, I mean, I think right now we have a demolition project. We have a demolition thing that we're doing. If you guys want to run more money than FIP, I mean, you guys can change whatever you want. I just think right now with the extra 200,000 with the money that we have this year, we're going to take a big chunk of these houses out that, I mean, are beyond repair. I mean, it's not just one ward, it's in all wards. You have to drive around to each of these wards. There's some houses here that unbelievable. And it's also for firefighter safety. It's also for policeman safety. It's for your children's safety that some of these houses come down.
Yeah, and I'm not, disagreeing with that, but it feels like they're starting to form a housing strategy, and that is part of it. And so not trying to slow down the process of tearing down houses, but realistically, we're just getting the 11 from the third sale. And I don't think we've torn down any of the other 37 that we had on the list, have we?
Not yet.
Yeah, so I mean,
Nope.
and maybe we authorize the 200,000, but again, I'd love to find, more details on the FNIP and, frankly, funnel more money through it and explore the concept of a land bank and what we're gonna do with all these properties. You had mentioned putting them up for sale, and I think it's a great idea. The side lot program could be changed. Could we bundle enough houses together to actually do developer interests or not for profit?
So I would like to touch on the side lot program real quick. So from now on, I think when we bring you that bill, or I believe it's a bill, correct? Do you have 2 readings? We will make sure the applications with it. We will make sure that you have all the information. And it's up to you if you want them here, but I believe if we give you the information, we talk to the person, that should be good.
Okay,
But we will do what you need.
okay. Councilwoman Noor.
Questions. One regarding the demolition of the houses. So will the $200,000 be enough to demo the houses? Because initially there was $300,000 proposed, right? So-
100,000 come from EDST.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for the clarification. I forgot about that. And going back to FNIP, I just would like to suggest that because FNIP, Mr. Robinette stated last week that FNIP has committed 110,000 of the 250,000 that was allocated last year, which means there's 140,000 remaining, right? So that money is still there for programs. So since we want to allocate 400,000, I would like to ask if we could allocate a little bit less to FNIP and put more towards the citywide for the examples of safety, because those speed humps are expensive and we do need them on many streets. And it's nothing personal towards FNIP. It's just that 400,000 is a lot of money. And if you add that with the 250,000, that's $650,000 when we're only allocating 231,000 towards speed humps, you know, and all these other cameras, police shootings. So I'm not against allocating any money, but I just would like, that's a lot of money. A
So-
whole lot.
With redoing a lot of our streets that we're hopefully gonna do. These are temporary speed humps that we want to put in, the ones that you're gonna bolt down. We want, when we redo a street, we want to make it a permanent one with asphalt. So that's why we're saying it can fall in that $200,000, because we don't need, we don't need to have them on every street, because not every street there is a problem with that speeding. We have to look at the main drags. Like, and so I think we can get enough, because we're looking at other places right now. We can maybe potentially get them for a lot cheaper than $1,000 a set. We're just doing some more investigating to make sure that they're gonna be, roadworthy and US, coverage, so it's safe. I have talked to Larry Robinette on a bunch of the programs, and Larry, if you'd like to come up, you're more than welcome to. But is maybe we increase the amount that we do towards the homeowners, so they can take down trees, or so they can do something else. Is that the right route? I'm just trying to get some of this money into residents' hands because some of these people don't have the funds to do this, and this
I
could be our
appreciate that.
opportunity.
So does that mean that people will be able to participate in the program more than once, homeowners, because more money will be allocated towards these programs? So like if you participated this year in the exterior home grant and more money is allocated, that means that you can participate again, right? I mean,
if you
you
think
know.
about not everybody in the city of Ferguson did the first round, correct?
Right. No, I
So
understand
if we
that.
do increase it, if we have a chance to potentially increase it, maybe more people could do.
Councilwoman.
It's my understanding that because I've heard this on the phone, in proximity, that yes, the new fiscal year will start the new round. So if you had something done in this past fiscal year, you're eligible for an additional one in the new fiscal year. You just can't have two in the same fiscal year.
Thank you for clarifying.
I don't think, let's bargain in good faith. FNIP is going to do things in conjunction with the city. So what has been proposed here is in good faith. And this is just a starting point.
Yes,
It's a starting point. So
And we also need to remember that these are volunteers. I mean, they're giving their hard-earned time and free time to this. And, so I mean, they're taking, you guys are biting off a huge chunk of possibilities, and that's awesome.
Okay. One other thing.
Originally, $520,000. We talked about the fact that we're actually up to 130,000 committed now. And so we did talk about money that still hasn't been spent in the first fiscal year. We're kind of late getting that, moved over, getting started, putting things out there. The 400,000 will go a long way. It's not what we originally had put into the proposal, but the 400,000 will go a long way to funding the program. And in addition to funding some exterior programs through the rest of the next fiscal year, and maybe even give us the opportunity to increase the amount from $1,000 more. That's not my decision there. That is a board of directors, right? We would make that proposal. Once we see how much money we have, we'll look at our budget for the year and we'll put it together, and that'll be what our board will vote on for our own budget based on how much funding we have. We also anticipate applying for grants in other arenas. Most of you know FNIP did that in previous years, about 10, 15 years ago. There are quite a few grants out there that help communities do the things that we're doing. And now that we're coming together with a set of audited books to be able to apply for those grants as well. So the funding for FNIP, we don't anticipate will just be the city of Ferguson. It's kind of the summary of what's happened in the last week and a half.
It's a great
Yeah.
start.
Can I
Go ahead.
Yeah, and as we talked this week, I mean, to do a lot of almost everything we wanted, it was closer almost to what, $900,000. And just seeing the needs of our streets, yeah, I would love to do it, but just seeing the needs of our streets, just hearing what people are saying, I have to find other ways to make sure that we get what we need. And so like we even thought about a facade, program. Look down some of our downtown businesses. We need to freshen those up, that could easily be in that program, that $200,000. I mean, I could take away some more from the 30 million for streets if we want and put it towards it. But I just think with our streets the way they are, we need to do that.
Who was first?
Okay.
Okay, Palmer.
When I see this list that staff put together, it really brings me back to I have email files, folders, like labeled trees, potholes, derelict housing, speeding. This really is a large funding source that's one time that really appears to really help to address a lot of those, I wouldn't say unfunded liabilities, but underfunded. We have underfunded our roads for decades. We have underfunded our housing for decades. We don't cut nearly enough city-owned trees down. Every resident, every street's got countless dead trees on private property that if that works through a new tree program, that's fantastic. These are all things that if implemented, we see when we drive around, and it will impact every part of the community. It's good to see that the staff is really taking a serious approach at trying to make our job easier as well as theirs, because we'll get less calls on roads, housing, dead trees. This will put a big dent in a lot of the underfunded programs that we have. It's a one-time source, and if it can get us at least caught back up on a lot of these fronts, that's going to make things a lot better, and it truly will help the residents. Redoing a shooting range, which might be good for our department, the residents honestly probably don't care about that. They want their street paved. I'm fine with doing the shooting range because it's going to help with our police department and support their efforts. And it sounds like we could make a little bit of money back on that. But it's good to see that a significant portion of this is going towards things that are brick and mortar things within our community that make sense. And in turn, this is an investment in your community. So when you cut trees down, pave streets, tear down houses, it increases your tax base. So we will see further revenue. We've had a diminishing revenue curve for decades on housing because we get a lot of money from real estate tax. Our real estate taxes are 26% less in Ferguson than Florissant. If we can get rid of a lot of the outliers and the blight and the road issues, it makes houses worth more money, spurs the interest in homeownership, and makes the community more inviting. So I'm just glad to see that staff took the time to really address some of the concerns a lot of us on council have had over things that we hear the complaints about from the residents.
Rachel is going to be working with FNIP, so that's a big plus. That's why she's here for community development. Ashby, and then after that, the floor be closed, and we ready to. Okay, after Ashby.
Well, I think you want to go first one. Well, yeah, so I guess my comment comes back to that. I know roads are important, but I think if we spend all the money on roads this year, we might get 6 months down the road and think, gosh, I wish we'd put some of that in our back pocket, because maybe FNIP comes up with something different, or maybe there's a federal grant that we could do, or that's my concern, right? If we commit to all of it right now, it's harder to change that. Whereas if we, bump the 237 up to 300 to give them more flexibility on trees, and then put 1.2 million in reserve, just to pick numbers, we can still come back and spend it on roads if that's the best thing. but we're not trying to commit right now. You know, and part of this, everything's a moving target right now, right? I mean, you're new, we've got a bunch of new people. You know, there's a chance we'll get 6 months down the road and Rachel will say, gosh, if we only had this little bucket of money, we could do X, Y, or Z. So just putting 1.2 million in reserve gives us flexibility down the road, maybe for more for the FNIP, maybe for something else. Maybe we decide roads are the best use. But it's just kind of deferring the decision and, you know, kind of learning as we go and as we spend money.
Councilwoman Lipka.
So just, I mean, before I go into my question, I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Ashby, but I would say you're new on council. Ella has 6 years more than that, and I have 6 years, and Heather has 6 years, and these other people who are on council have been here, and we all we get daily, weekly are phone calls about the streets. And I would say that at this point, being able to answer a phone call tomorrow and tell a citizen, hey, our city council just approved, or we're approving a budget that puts $3 million in streets and we're going to replace slabs, will go so far in this community to give them a higher morale. Chief Hampton's been working very hard at morale in the city, in City Hall. This is the kind of morale that we need to give our citizens. And I will also say that, you know, Phaedra's worked at it, I've worked at it, Ella's worked at it. And those are the 3 I know for sure. I'm sure you others have, but those are the ones I know intimately. We have gotten and fought for individual slabs. I mean, like, we've had a situation, there was a year where in Ferguson Woods, there was only $7,000 left in the road budget. And I got 3 slabs out of it. You know, and those 3 slabs didn't mean diddly in the overall scheme of Ferguson, but on Elkins, it meant the world to those citizens. And so what we can do with $3 million in slab work and repair is tremendous. That being said, I want to go to my question, which is on the page proposed ARPA spending with fiscal year 2024. And we have on there band shell at JW 30,000. How does that fit into the ARPA criteria? I mean, why, you know, I mean, there's my 30,000 for the
So-
Ferguson News.
I could renovate a firehouse. I could buy an ambulance if I wanted to with ARPA now. And this is beautifying, something that we're gonna use almost every year for at least one time for July 4th to bring that pride back to Ferguson.
Parks.
But, you know, and that's, I really like the word you just chose, and I'm not knocking you, Chief Hampton, but pride is the right word. It brings back the pride. And I will just say this again, and you guys can all roll your eyes as much as you want, but pride is what part of that Ferguson Times was too. So, you know, it has a value as well.
I could say a lot. You
Go
have to
for it
read-
then.
you have
Please
to
say it.
read the ARPA designation, and the band shells falls under there because it's community health for seniors and children. And I think it's on page 14 or 15 of the ARPA guide. Yeah, it meets the criteria. It does. We have this before us. What is your pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to adjust it. Can I do that? I don't know.
You can make any motion you want to.
I'd like to motion to adjust the budget to reduce roads to 1.5 million and increase the miscellaneous bucket to 300,000.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? The motion dies on the floor.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to accept the proposal as presented.
Linda Lipka.
It has been properly moved in second. Are there any questions? Hear none.
I had one. Sorry. Once we pass the budget, we can always come back and adjust it down the road, right?
You could adjust the budget anytime, but we normally adjust the budget in October if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thanks.
And we won't have it all spent by October.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Chris, could you please call a roll?
Councilman Palmer,
Aye.
Councilman Ashby,
Aye.
Councilman Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Councilman Lipka,
Aye.
Councilman Nelson. Councilman Noah.
Aye. The polls, information about the ARPA funding, the has passed. Next.
Yeah. So we have one other change, the sidewalk. Well, I want to officially, because that was in ARPA. You go ahead now.
Thank you, Mr. Robinette. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. And thank you, Mr. Musgrave. Appreciate you for your hard work.
And I will turn it over to Evan for the sidewalk program.
Under street replacement CIP. For this year, we changed the 500,000, changed to 350,000. We increased the sidewalks from 5,000 to 55,000. Proposed. The other money were used towards salary schedule. Council meeting.
Yeah, well, one other thing with the sidewalk program, when we are doing street replacement, what we're gonna try to do is hit that subdivision or that area to talk to the homeowners. And then that way, since we have the concrete out there, maybe we can get it a lot cheaper.
Okay. That's fair.
So the last one I want to point out, we will go over more of the salary of the pension board. That's in April, and the pension board's actually decided to start in April, so they can start to, if they have any recommendations or if they want to make any changes or fiscal disbursements to the city, that they have to do so prior to budget hearing. It's usually by the time budget is presented, they meet in May, in this window to have that conversation. So they've actually voted on and passed that the disbursements, all current employees, all future retirees, I'm sorry, now will be increased from 1.75% to 2%. And that would be matching for the current inflation, it's the that they haven't done. The other part of that is that we also do 4% one-time COLA all current retirees that would have to hopefully match inflation. And this recommendation based upon the actual figures of the recommendation council, the city fund, the pension fund at $505,000, which we can do, and that's in the budget numbers already, as I've given you guys. And it's itemized out for by department. We can go more figures.
I got one other change as well.
Go ahead.
We are gonna put that money from the paper, now that it's not there any longer, with the police department and get a PIO.
Mhm.
I talked to Chief Doyle today, just in case this would happen, that we will be working to get a PIO for the city. And that's gonna also help us funnel the way we put all information out.
Thank you.
Going back, look at all these cover on your books, I updated all your books, look at the cover sheet where it has the expense for the department under pension contribution, that number is updated. Reflect all the 505,000. It is an increase a little bit, but as I told the pension board, if we do anything on the back end, paying out more money, pension, we have to put more money back in. Yep.
Councilwoman.
Regarding since we're talking about the pension, they made the request when they came to our city council meeting of us extending the LifeLock or Norton protection and things like that. Is that something that's being considered? Is that something we need to talk about for this budget?
So we offered them 1 year. Well, if they want to continue it, it's, what is it, $14 a month?
For the plan that we offered, it's gonna end up being like less than $9 a month. Or it's about $14 a month. It's less per paycheck, even though you only get one paycheck per paycheck, it technically is like $7 or $6, but it rounds out to about 14 a month.
Have we reached out to them at all with some follow-up on the information that we had learned regarding the IRS?
So I'm still in talks with Apollo to make sure I have total clarification. I don't want to send out misinformation anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilwoman Robinette.
So, I attended that pension meeting. That was a very lively pension board meeting. And, it was it feels like a comedy of errors that occurred, with their final 1099. And especially having the social security number exposed, and a lot of them didn't even get it. Because it's such a small amount, I think it might be good for the city to cover an additional year. If we can get consensus on that.
Councilman Palmer.
My question on that matter would be, have any of the pension recipients had a data breach of their personal identification that we know of?
Not that I've heard.
Has the attorney or counsel for the city mentioned any kind of liability risk that we may have should this happen, if there is any?
Negative. Not from council, or not from Apollo.
Imagine it's quite, while that would be tragic if that happened to somebody, it's probably pretty difficult to prove where data did come from. I would imagine the 100 or so pensioners will be pretty excited if they get a cost of living increase, because that's never happened in history, correct? Okay.
Recky said it in his 30 years of being on the pension board, he'd never seen the increase.
Right. We have pension recipients that I think are still, if they went on the pension 30 years ago, if somebody is of that age, they were still receiving the same amount that they were receiving the day they retired, which is probably less than $1,000, I would imagine. So, okay, thank you.
They're not getting no money. Councilman Blake Ashby.
And so we did extend it to a second year. It's a nominal sum, right? It's a few $1,000s.
Yeah, we can cover it. I don't think it does.
Okay.
It's a, yeah.
One of the rules, they say no pensions.
I didn't know about pensions. That was safety.
Pension fund is actually full of application. That the pension pay for, but the pension does pay for not only just the disbursement, but also pay for maintenance fees and management fees for the investment like that. So perfect, an accurate fee, right?
Okay. Councilwoman Nelson.
That's, no, we have a street sweeper this year. We're getting it now. We're gonna be able to lease it. We'll be bringing it to council. Yep. Dave, if you could come up.
He moved it out to 2026 or either 2027.
Did you move, Nesbitt Newton out to?
Dave, sounds good.
25, 26.
26. The only reason I moved that out there is we have a slide that's all there, and so it'll be usable, whereas Dave is still following up and everything, so he's gonna take the playground side. to replace them all. We don't have to replace all. It's worse, you can always do things.
Anything else, Councilwoman Nelson? Okay, Councilwoman Lipka.
Mayor, would it be a motion to extend the LifeLock process? Or would it be a recommendation to the pension board? Because if it's a motion, I would like to leave that open to Councilwoman Robinette since that's her baby.
You want to do it now or wait till we do
Uh,
personnel?
Yeah, so right now it will be on next calendar.
Okay.
Fiscal. It won't be on this one coming up.
Right.
So we're paying a whole year now.
So if start the next calendar.
Yeah,
year.
we'll extend our thing till next, the following fiscal year.
Okay,
Okay.
that's,
We're
That's
actually
fine.
using it.
So we'll make sure we make note of that for the following year.
okay.
Last thing, you know, that on the, this page right here. Second page, I think, presenting final budget. Final budget we're presenting does give a surplus $77,659. Showing the black, that will be an increase in our fund back and change our fund balance to $900,850. We feel this is strong budget. We feel that especially with increase spending, well, revenue, but overall, in all, we're doing everything we can to cover these expenditures that we have for continuing to operate the city, but also fix several issues that have as we have to do our. Thank you.
Quick question.
Lenore.
Regarding Proposition U, have we received the funding yet? How much did we receive?
Each one right now is $4,000.
So that's how we receive the monthly? Okay.
2 months. That's.
Okay. You said 33,000.
Councilman Palmer.
Yeah, we were both basically the same time. Go ahead.
I don't have the paperwork in front of me. What was the forecast initially? Was it about 120,000? Well, then at one point, I think the annual forecast got down into the low 100s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's running so far above projections, the pot sales.
Might want to look into have Miss St. Pierre look into getting a dispensary up off the 270 corridor somewhere.
Only one per.
But if we were to annex that part of unincorporated St. Louis County, there is one on Halls Ferry.
Thing I was gonna ask is the proposition you, so you're saying $33,000 a month? Okay,
First of all, do anticipate this to be somewhat seasonal and hopefully anticipate like fall. Once the reports increase because of holiday spending. And
I mean, everybody likes to party.
What that looks like, I think.
Do their stuff and they order Domino's. Yeah, I get it. But my question is, we had originally said that those funds were going to be earmarked for police. Are we still maintaining that promise?
Stand fire.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Says the man in the red shirt.
Yeah, don't forget.
I always just put you two together.
Recommending expenditure revenue we didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, all that is earmarked towards those goals. Yeah.
And with that also being said, per our consent decree, we did have to make changes in PD's wages. And we did that, and we should be good with the consent decree after this. When we do the, what is it, the ordinance, the pay ordinance, once that's approved, then we should be good.
First,
Yes, ma'am.
city manager, do you have anything else for tonight?
I have nothing else, Mayor.
Finance director, do you have anything else for tonight? I'm requesting a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved, Heather Robinette.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Have a good weekend.